Hello, my fellow gamesters. Today, we are diving into 10 amazing games that got destroyed by reviews. So grab your controller, hit that like button if you're ready, and let's count down these misunderstood masterpieces. Coming in at number 10, we have got The Last Guardian, a game that took nearly a decade to release after its announcement. This PS4 exclusive promised a heartfelt story about a boy and his giant feathered beast Trico, set in a hauntingly beautiful world. The visuals stunning. The bond between the characters genuinely touching. Team Ico's signature atmosphere was all over this one, dripping with mystery and emotion. But here's the catch. Critics tore into its clunky controls and finicky AI, especially Trico's stubbornness, which could feel like babysitting a toddler with wings. Reviews called it outdated, averaging in the high 70s on Metacritic, and that lukewarm reception scared off players expecting a polished gem. Sales flopped, and its legacy got buried under the weight of those harsh critics. At number 9, it's The Search, a gritty sci-fi Souls-like from Deck 13 that dropped in 2017. The combat was tight with a limbed targeting system that let you hack off parts for upgrades, and the world oozed atmosphere. It had a steep learning curve, sure, but that's the Souls-like charm. Critics weren't sold. Reviews hovered around the low 70s, slamming its repetitive level design and lackluster story, tanking its reputation among fans of the genre. Sales were dismal, and it faded into obscurity despite its unique spin. If you are craving a challenging sci-fi fix, don't sleep on this one. It's tougher than it got credit for. Number 8 is Days Gone, the 2019 PS4 open-world zombie epic that had all the makings for a hit. You play as Deacon St. John, a biker with a tragic past, tearing through Oregon on two wheels while facing off against swarms of infected freakers. The visuals were gorgeous. The horde mechanics were insane, and the story had real heart if you stuck with it. But critics, they shredded it. Metacritic sits at 71, calling it buggy, generic, and overstuffed with fetch quests. Big sites like GameSpot gave it a 5 out of 10, and that brutal press turned it into a punching bag, overshadowing its late gaming brilliance. Sales started slow, and Sony seemed to abandon it, despite a loyal fanbase begging for more. It is just a sleeper hit if you give it a chance. At 7, we got The Order 1886, a PS4 launch title dripping with style. Picture this: Victorian London, steampunk vibes, and knights fighting werewolves with Tesla-powered guns. The graphics were jaw-dropping, some of the best of its time, and the cinematic flair was off the charts. But critics pounced, averaging a 63 on Metacritic, because it clocked at just 6 hours and leaned hard into linear storytelling. Reviews called it a petty tech demo with no depth, and that narrative crushed its hype overnight. It sold poorly, and sequel hopes died fast. Say what you will, this one's a visual feast that deserved more love for its bold swing. Number 6 is Mad Max, the 2015 open-world brawler tied to the iconic film franchise. You are Max, scavenging the wasteland, upgrading your ride, and smashing raiders in brutal hand-to-hand fights. The driving felt great, the world was massive, and the sandstorm effects just fantastic. But reviews, sitting at 69 on Metacritic, called it repetitive and soulless, with outlets like Polygon docking it for lacking the movie's grit. The meh reception killed the momentum, and it got lost in the shadow of bigger titles that year. Sales were decent but not stellar, and Warner Bros. Left it in the dust. This one's a blast if you love vehicle chaos. Don't let the critics steer you away. Halfway there at number 5, it's Ryse Son of Rome, an Xbox One launch title from 2013. This game threw you into the sandals of Marius, a Roman soldier out for revenge, with visuals so crisp you could count the stitches on his armor. The combat was visceral, with slick executions that felt like a gladiator movie come to life. Well, critics, they weren't impressed. Metacritic's 60 reflects gripes about shallow gameplay and a short campaign. Reviews labeled it as gorgeous but empty shell, and that stigma sank its reputation fast. It sold okay but never got the sequel it teased. Number 4 is Biomutant, a 2021 open-world RPG with a post-apocalyptic twist. You are a fuzzy mutant warrior, kung fu fighting across a vibrant world with a narrator chiming like a quirky audiobook. The customization was wild, the art style popped, and it oozed personality. But critics tore it apart. Metacritic's 67 cites a messy story and clunky combat. Big reviews called it ambitious but hollow, and the backlash crushed its hype after years of build-up. Sales tanked, and its small dev team took a hit. It's flawed for no doubt, but this oddball deserves a cult following. At number 3, we got the Technomancer, a 2016 RPG set on a gritty, colonized Mars. You play as a rogue Technomancer, zapping foes with electric powers in a sprawling sci-fi world. The lore was deep, the choices mattered, and it had that janky Euro RPG charm. So what about critics? They roasted it. Metacritic's 56 slams its dated visuals and awkward pacing. Reviews dubbed it as budget Mass Effect knockoff, and that brutal press made it laughingstock. It barely sold, fading into obscurity despite its ambition. If you dig underdog RPGs, this one's got soul worth uncovering. Runner-up at number 2 is No Man's Sky, the 2016 space odyssey that promised the universe. With 18 quintillion planets to explore, it was hyped as the ultimate sandbox, gorgeous, endless, and ambitious as hell. The visuals were striking, and the idea alone was mind-blowing, but launch day, a disaster. Critics gave it a 71 on Metacritic, bashing its shallow gameplay and missing features. The internet exploded with hate, calling it a $60 lie, and its reputation hit rock bottom. Sales dipped after the initial rush, and it became a meme. Hello Games turned it around with updates, but that first sting was hurtful. This one's a legend reborn. Taking the top spot, it's the Saboteur, a 2009 open-world gem from Pandemic Studios. You're seeing Devlin, an Irish racer turned resistance fighter in Nazi-occupied Paris, with a killer gimmick. Liberated zones burst into color from grim monochrome, but critics weren't kind. Metacritic's 73 knocks its bugs and dated tech. Reviews called it rough around the edges, and that tepid response killed its buzz. Sales flopped, Pandemic shut down, and it's been forgotten by most. This one's a tragedy. It got heart, style, and sequel we'll never see. Hands down, the most underrated on this list. If you liked this video, dive into this video next.